Hey guys, what's going on? Stormwind here, back with another video. First of all, Happy New Year. This is my first video of the year. Last couple of weeks have been a little bit busy with work and travel, that kind of thing, so I haven't had a chance to make one, but starting the new year with this one today. I hope everyone's well and had a good break. Before I start, I just wanted to thank a couple of people actually. First of all, if you watched my previous video, you'll know that I did a review of Unnatural's CD, and Ken from Ken's Death Metal Crypt, and also the band Unnatural, Ken and Ted actually shared that review, which I think resulted in me getting a lot of subscribers. So thanks a lot, Ken and Ted, and really appreciate you sharing my review. And if you've joined as a result of that, thanks very much and welcome. Someone else I'd also like to thank is Liam from the Death Doom Metalhead. He gave me a little shout out in one of his most recent videos, and just had some really kind words to say about me, which again were really appreciated. So glad you enjoyed the channel, mate. And to people who followed as a result of that, also welcome. Okay, so just to get into today's topic, what I'm doing is death metal vinyl. So before I start that, what I'm listening to, this is an album by Morgoth, and I think, does it have a title? No, just The Best of Morgoth, 1987 to 1997. So most of you are probably familiar with these guys. They're a German death metal band, like old school, been around since 1991, I think, so one of the earlier ones. And I've always known about this band, but I only discovered their music a few years ago when I found a second-hand CD at the market, which is this one. It's great because it's just a compilation of all the greatest hits from their early to the latest materials. Also some demo tracks, which is cool. Yeah, their style, it's difficult to describe. It's like, I think they definitely have a unique sound. The vocals are a little bit like Obituary, you know, that kind of but at the same time slightly different. But it's very sort of like just dark, atmospheric death metal, and interesting. So many good songs on this, but probably my favorites would be White Gallery and Pits of Utumno. Is that how you pronounce it? Because both of those are very atmospheric with some keyboards just sounding very dark. Also Isolated, which is a classic track by this band. And interestingly, they include some songs from their later career, like late 90s, when they went a bit more experimental. And I'm sure a lot of old school fans kind of like hated that style, like songs like This Fantastic Decade, Graceland and Last Laugh, but I just find them really interesting. So overall, it's just a brilliant CD by a brilliant band. Second CD, you've got demo versions of some of the older songs. TV War is another good song, but yeah, really good. If you've never checked these guys out, you should. Just great old school German dark death metal. So that's Morgoth with The Best of Morgoth. Alright, so with today's vinyl theme, death metal, this is sort of like a combination between a collection update and my existing collection. Having said that, I'll see how I go for time, because I don't want these videos to go on for too long, as I always say. I do have 5 records to potentially talk about. So the first 3 I bought from my friend Preacher in Thailand. It's just easier to buy that stuff locally rather than pay for all the expensive shipping. So these 3 records I'm going to start now. These are quite new to my collection, so we'll get into that first, and then maybe the other 2 after this. So here we go. Alright, so the first record I'm going to talk about today, this is Broken Hope with The Bowels of Repugnance. So if you saw my last Death Metal Vinyl Volume 1, you'll recall that I talked about this band. I've spoken about them quite a bit. The one I spoke about before was Swamped in Gore, which is just like a classic old school death metal album from '91. I've also spoken about some of their CD releases. This one is totally new to me. It came out in 1993, but it was kind of fresh material, so kind of got some gloss on there. Cool cover artwork. Oh, I probably should say at this stage, I have put a disclaimer up about explicit artwork, titles and band names, that kind of thing. So if you're easily offended by gory content, maybe this video is not for you. But yeah, this is a pretty cool cover art here. So most of you are probably familiar with Broken Hope. I've spoken about them a lot in previous videos, so you can go and check those out if you like. But basically it's very like down-tuned, brutal, old school, honest death metal, which I really like personally. Now this album, I see this one as a sister album to Repulsive Conception. You remember when I spoke about Repulsive Conception, I said all of the classic elements of death metal there, like down-tuned guitars, guttural vocals, double bass drumming and everything, dark atmosphere. But with Repulsive Conception, a lot of the riffs were kind of stop stop-start, and it was hard to find too many standout tracks, I don't think. And pretty much this one is like a sister album of that, in the sense that I think they're kind of similar. So would I say this one's my favorite one by the band? No, but it's still a good album. What I will say about it, overall, initially, when you first listen to this, at least in my case, this is seemingly impenetrable. But it does get better as it goes along and with more listens. So, as I said, all of the classic elements of death metal are there. You've got down-tuned guitars, haunting melodies and harmonies, double bass drumming, low guttural vocals. But a lot of material on this sounds more like background music to me, if I'm being honest with you, in the sense that there are not many standout tracks, initially. So, it's, for me, it's hard to tell a lot of the songs apart, to be honest. And many of them blend into each other, so this is because there's some monotony and repetition. So overall it's a great sound, but just like Repulsive Conception, I find it hard to identify standout tracks, at least at this stage. I've listened to it a few times. Another thing, the production on this is a bit thin and murky, so it's hard to hear everything that's going on clearly, and as with a lot of death metal bands, there's a lot, with technicality, there's a lot going on, but it's hard to hear everything. The bass tone is thick, which makes it sound heavy, but it also drowns out the clarity of a lot of the other instruments and the vocals, so it makes everything sound a bit muddy. Now, the vocals, who are performed by a guy called Joe, rest in peace. He passed away in 2007. His name's Joe Ptacek, but apparently you pronounce it Joe Ficek, which I think is interesting because that's the Thai word for lighter. But anyway, Joe, he was as I've said this before, he, in my opinion, was one of the best vocalists in the death metal genre of all time, and I still stand by that. So his vocals on this album are fantastic as an effect. They're extremely low and guttural, with a lot of reverb. They sound almost gurgled, and as a result of that, they were probably an inspiration for a lot of these newer slam death metal bands, you know, where the vocals are typically very gurgly. They're when I say they're fantastic as an effect, like you hear the guttural aspect, the lowness and everything, and the gurgling, but the shortcoming is that they are monotonous and they don't really change on the album, and they're also totally incomprehensible. So even when you read the lyrics against the vocals, you can't really make out those words, which I find, you know, that's a small problem to me. But anyway, like overall, as I said, as an effect, they're great. So let me just stop there for a moment. You probably think I don't like this album. I certainly do. All I'm saying is that I think it's one of those ones that will take some time to grow on the listener. Like at the beginning, it's seemingly impenetrable, but upon repeated listens, it does sound better. And I will say this, from the beginning, you've got 14 tracks. In my opinion, the album gets better as it goes along. So just to give you some insight, some bands that I would compare this album to would be early Cannibal Corpse, early Lividity, and also, especially the vocals, and also early Gorguts albums like Considered Dead, which I think is just a classic album, so no wonder I like this. In my opinion, side B has some much catchier songs, but yeah, overall great. So what are my favorite tracks? I said there weren't many standout ones, but there are a few which I really like. So first of all, She Came Out in Chunks. That's got some slow and haunting riffs interspersed with some blast beat sections. There are some extremely gurgled and guttural vocals in that song, and those classic marching, Broken Hope, heavy old school riffs, which are just great. And they've also got those Gorguts-esque screechy riffs, like at the end, which is really cool. And some nice mid-sections with a cool solo. So that's She Came Out in Chunks. Then also Hobo Stew, that's got some slow chugging riffs interspersed with some blast beat sections again. And it sounds a bit like Death Doom with the slower parts, which is cool. There's a great solo over a slow doomy backdrop, which I really like. So that song Hobo Stew is veering into Death Doom territory. Okay, also possibly my favorite track on the album on side B is Remember My Members. So good title first of all. It's got some great flowing catchy riffs against catchy solid drumming and a few groove driven stop start riffs too. So like yeah, just like that's when you really feel the groove on the second side of this record, in my opinion. Also this track Waterlogged, that's a slow heavy chugging track with a great groove. Fantastic drumming, especially with the mid-paced blast beat sections, and the double bass drumming is just awesome on that song. Also another one for me, Embryonic Triclops is a great song because it's got some fast, catchy punk-inspired riffs against some blast beats. And finally, my other favorite track is Felching Vampires, the last one. So that's got some haunting and disturbing melodies over solid, chunky, catchy stop-start riffs and some nice harmonies and solos. This has an epic feel with awesome double bass drumming against solid riffs. So, interestingly, that song, Felching Vampires, that was the only song where the lyrics were written by the vocalist Joe. Normally it's Jeremy Wagner, the guitarist, who writes all the lyrics, but Joe wrote the lyrics for Felching Vampires, which are undoubtedly the sickest on the album, just like extremely gory and explicit. If you don't know what the word felching means, look it up and you get the picture of what this is about. But very good song. Anyway, so just show you the inside. So it comes with this insert here, lyrics and thanks list with portraits of the band. And this one came in different color variants, like Preacher told me about a few different types. I actually opted for the silver vinyl. I think it's more like gray actually, but yeah. I always go for colors these days just to make it a little bit more interesting. So yeah, that's why I decided to go with that one. I think you can get it in plain black, obviously. Yeah, so just to conclude on this, this is a very good death metal album with that classic old school feel. All I'm saying is that in the beginning it's seemingly impenetrable, and it may take a few listens to get used to it, but sometimes it's the more complex music which is more interesting. If something just is catchy straight away, sometimes it can get boring quickly. So I think this is a good one. I think this will continue to grow on me. If you like old school death metal, as I said, those bands like Cannibal Corpse, Lividity, Gorguts, stuff like that, you'll definitely dig this, so check it out. That's Broken Hope with The Bowels of Repugnance. Up next, these are also two new ones which I got recently from Preacher. So this particular band, it's a band, one of the first ones I ever heard when I was about 14 years old. So yeah, they've been very influential on me in terms of listening to this music. I will say this, that I'm not a fan of the band name. I don't like it, and that's probably, the reasons are probably obvious when you see this, but of course the band I'm talking about is Cancer. So this is their newest one, Ballcutter. So as I said, please see the disclaimer. This is an EP off their new album called Shadow Grip. So if you don't know this band, they're a death metal band from the UK, one of the earliest ones, been around since the late 80s, and their first album came out in 91. They've been active on and off over the years, but as I said, I don't like the band name for obvious reasons, but I think musically they're one of the best, which I'll get into more later. So I'll just read the hype sticker here for you. It says, Cancer Ballcutter, new 5-track EP of deranged death metal from the UK genre legends, presented on limited yellow vinyl. So again, this came in different color variants. So you've got that cover art. I'll just take it out of the plastic. Yeah, there you go. So pretty disturbing cover art which reflects the music. And as you can see here, it's a 5-track EP. Okay, so you've got the song Ballcutter, which is from the album Shadow Grip, but this is an alternate master version, so it's a little bit different. And then the other tracks, All the Curses, Crocodile Itch, and then demo versions of Garrote and Organ Snatcher. So, what is to be said about this band? Remember, they changed their style. The second album, which most people really like a lot, is called Death Shall Rise. That's when the vocal style changed to some more low guttural vocals, more like American death metal. Whereas the first album, the vocals were kind of like raspy. But in this one, they continue in the guttural way. So all 5 tracks on this are really good, I will say. So the title track, Ballcutter, that's just got some heavy, sludgy, monotonous, slow riffing with interludes of thrashy riffs and catchy mid-tempos in parts. The syncopations with this band are always great. They're always really excellent, bouncy, catchy, so you can't help but slide into the groove. And the chorus has a killer heavy groove actually, and is very catchy. The vocals are deep and heavy with a noticeable British accent, a bit similar. So that's funny, like with this band and also other bands like Benediction and Napalm Death, even though it's this low guttural growl, you can hear the English accent behind it, which I think is really cool. And you definitely hear that on this track where it's like, all of your balls. God, that was a shit impersonation, but you'll see what I mean when you hear it. And also this features a nice guitar solo from Anders Nystrom, who was in, he's been in loads of bands. Edge of Sanity, Catatonia, Bloodbath, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but a famous Swedish death metal musician, so he played the guitar solo on Ballcutter. Then track 2, All the Curses. For me, this track is a bit reminiscent of 6 Feet Under's slow, heavy style and features some catchy vocal patterns in the chorus. The bridge of that song features some heavy crushing and old school riffs, and it's got another brilliantly eerie guitar solo, so that's All the Curses. Now, track 3, Crocodile Itch, that's got a heavy strutting riff and very catchy vocal patterns. The lyrics of this song make everything memorable too. I think it's about aging, something like that, so talking about real life issues, but you know, typically disturbing and depressing for a death metal band. But that song is almost like a sing-along-esque with its catchy quality. So that song, Crocodile Itch, is great. Now we go over to side 2 with 2 tracks. Garrot, I think, was another single which was dropped from this album. It's got a thrashing riff with death metal heaviness, so it's got sort of like thrashy kind of sound, but death metal heaviness, if that makes sense. This one, actually, I would say that has the catchiest chorus on the whole EP, like, Garrot. Like, it's just so simplistic, but along with that groove and the rhythm, you're going to be singing along, so that's great. And then finally, we have the track Organ Snatcher. That one's more of the same thing, a kind of bouncy syncopation mixed with heaviness. So as I've said, with this band, they have a lot of bouncy, catchy syncopations, especially from their mid to late era. So that's really great as well. And that song, Organ Snatcher, has some really great macabre lyrics. I think John Walker always writes these interesting, disturbing lyrics. So that song is about someone having their organs stolen and robbed and sold on the black market, and then they have to buy them back. Like, it's fucked up, but I mean, for a death metal band, like, you want to hear something macabre and disturbing like that, don't you? Okay, so as you can hear from me, like, I think all 5 tracks are great. Any criticisms of this or any gripes? Not really, but I would say the sound quality and the production isn't the best. It's heavy, but I think it's a bit too dirty sounding. So I think for the first 3 tracks, I think they could have been much clearer. The bass tone, this is good, it's very thick and heavy, but almost too heavy because it muffles and drowns everything out a bit on those first 3 tracks. But ironically, on the demo tracks, the sound quality is much better because the bass tone isn't too thick and heavy, so you can hear everything more clearly. So the mix is just better. Everything sounds clearer, including the vocals. So, like, again, the sound quality gets better on side 2 of this album. So just show you the record, which is really cool. It comes on canary yellow vinyl, so cool labels. Very nice. So this one came in different color variants again, but I thought to match the writing on the front, I would like to get yellow. So there you go. Okay, now coming up next, I'm going to talk about an album by the same band, which is, in my opinion, just brilliant, flawless. That is, of course, the same band. This is Cancer with To the Gory End. Legendary, legendary album. So I'll tell you a little story about this, just bear with me. This was one of the first albums, death metal albums I ever heard in my life, so when I was about 14 years old, that's when my friends and I got into death metal. So the year was 1993. The first band I ever heard was Dismember. Still a fan of them to this day, of course. And then other bands which we heard first were Cannibal Corpse and Pungent Stench, and then this one. So I would say it was like within the first 5 bands I ever heard. And at that age, my friend, he bought a copy of Death Shall Rise, which was the band's second album, revered by most fans as the most legendary one. I agree, it's a great album, just bouncy, catchy, brutal death metal. And then, because my friend bought that one, I saw this one second hand, so with my pocket money, my parents weren't too thrilled, I don't think, but like at 14 years old, I bought a CD copy of this and just loved it it's just so catchy, this album. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why. So this came out in 1991, which is of course when a lot of death metal was still steeped in thrash, because it was that era where thrash metal was crossing over into death metal as it got more extreme. So death metal at that time often retained a very strong thrash influence, and that's definitely the case on this album. I would say it's death thrash for sure, because you have all those, like, lyrically it's very much death metal, and in terms of the heaviness and the slow breakdowns and the heavy riffs, definitely death metal. But where it's thrashy is just like with some of the rhythms, the mid-pace and the fast sections and the chugging riffs and everything, it's very thrashy. So it's that perfect blend between thrash and death, which I just love. To give you an idea of what it sounds like, I never realized it at the time, but now older with a lot more experience with music, I would say this is very similar in some ways to old Sepultura. So when you listen to the guitar tone and the riff style and the drumming style, I would say it's very comparable to Sepultura's Beneath the Remains and also Arise. Like, you might think, what? No, but like, listen to it, honestly, it really is very reminiscent of that to me. But then again, it also retains its own English death metal identity, because John Walker has a unique vocal style on this. It's sort of, on this album, his style was different, more raspy, like, sort of like the way Chris Barnes from Cannibal Corpse, he used to sing like that at the beginning too, so more from a thrash perspective. But yeah, the vocals sound raspy like that, maybe comparable to Carcass vocals, which is interesting. Like, the singer of this band, John Walker, and the singer of Carcass was Jeff Walker, no relation, but similar vocal style. Anyway, brilliantly catchy old school death thrash metal album. Literally no weak tracks, no bad tracks. The production is kind of raw and thin, but it really suits the style, definitely. And the drum sound has got that kind of raw sound too, which is just great. But everything is clear, some brilliant playing on this, and just some ingeniously catchy songs. Like, not one bad track on this album at all, honestly. Like, they're all good. Some of my favorites though, Bloodbath, with that opening scream, and that drumming intro is just sick as well. Also, just like heavy chugging riffs in that song, so Bloodbath is brilliant. Also, Witch Hunt, that's got some like great striding riffs in that, which just reel you in. It's awesome. Into the Acid, catchy riff in that, like, just immediately you're reeled in with that. And it's quite funny with that song, the lyrics, it's about someone corroding in a vat of acid. And when I read the lyrics, age 14, I read the line, "Your criminal friends have left you now," and I go, oh wow, that sounds like something out of RoboCop. And interestingly, when I read the linear notes of this, that's exactly where they got the inspiration. So in the liner notes, which I'll show on the inside, they talk about how they saw RoboCop at the movies and they were really influenced by that scene to write that song. You know the scene when Emil drives a truck through the toxic waste vat and then he's going, "Help me," and like Leon goes, "Oh, get away from me, man," and then Clarence drives through and it splats on the windscreen. He's shit. Sorry, but you know the scene. So anyway, that song was inspired by that scene in the movie, so also a very good song. I also like Imminent Catastrophe, just catchy. To the Gory End, that's where you see the more atmospheric side of the band with, they use some keyboards there and just some really fast, catchy riffs in that, and feels like at the end of that song, like, at the end of the riff in that song, it's just brilliant. So To the Gory End, which was also, that was inspired by the film Hellraiser, so that's what it's covering lyrically. My other two favorite tracks would be Sentenced to the Gallows, because that's got that epic galloping style with the open heavy chords and everything, and they include some acoustic guitars and keyboards, so just old school, like straightforward heavy death metal riffing, which is just brilliant. Sorry, what song is this? I think Hits of Autumno from Morgoth, great song. Okay, so anyway, Sentenced to the Gallows, like old school but so atmospheric and catchy. And my other favorite track would be Die Die, just another atmospheric track where they use some keyboards in that, and just like very catchy chorus, brilliant drumming. It's just fantastic. Like, not a single bad track on this, guys, but they're my favorites that I just mentioned there. This also includes two demo tracks, Our Fate and Revenged, from their 1989 demo. For demo tracks, they're decent. Like, again, it sounds a bit Sepultura-esque with the riffing. Sound quality isn't the best, but, it's still pretty good songs, and it's interesting to hear that band, at an early age. Okay, so it comes here with a nice lyric sheet. Also, about the lyrics with this band, they're always appropriately macabre and morbid, but what I like about them is they're not pretentious. They're written with simplicity, like rhyming couplets and everything, but it's so effective and it just adds to the overall dark atmosphere of this album, so I just love that. Then you've got here, collage, and you've got some sort of like, what would you say, commentary, pieces of commentary about the album. One written by Carl Stokes, the drummer, the other one written by John Walker, the vocalist and guitarist, and they've got a thanks list too. So when you read these bios, especially from Carl, that's when I learned a lot of trivia about the album, like that Robocop piece of information, which I thought is really interesting. So it's like, all these years later, damn, nearly 30 years later, that was confirmed for me. So pretty cool. All right, now showing you the vinyl itself, it's very nice. Okay, so identical labels. This one comes on this nice rich red marbled vinyl. Okay, and you can see here, you've got that iconic label on the front, the guy with the blade in the head and the blood trickling down. Yeah, this one's really nice. Again, it came in different colors, but I just thought red, for me, like, just suits the cover art and the theme and everything, so I decided to go with that. Now, I will show you something else in a moment. Okay, guys, and I can't find it, but I was going to show you a label which came with this record, which says it's limited. This version was limited to 500 copies. I think I got $3.99. Damn it, I wanted to show you that label, but it's just gone missing, which is kind of annoying. But anyway, yeah. Now, speaking about this band, I would say they are my favorite UK death metal band. In my opinion, the best death metal band to ever emerge from the UK. I think most people would say Carcass, which has a cult following. I do like Carcass, except they're more sort of grindcore oriented, especially the first couple of albums, like those ones like Reek of Putrefaction and Symphonies of Sickness. I'm not the world's biggest grindcore fan, so Carcass is more sort of grindy and it's a bit more technical, whereas this band is more straightforward, like just old school, straightforward riffs, and has a thrashier element, and it's a lot catchier. So, like, don't get me wrong, I think Carcass are a very good band, but in my opinion, this is just more my style. So I think this is the best band from the UK in that genre. What's your favorite UK band? You tell me. But if you haven't heard this album, you definitely should check it out because it's just brilliant. Still stands the test of time. Like, I hadn't heard this since I was maybe 15, and when I put this record on the other day, it was like, wow, it's even better than I remembered. Like, they just don't make them like they used to, so definitely check this one out. This is Cancer with To the Gory End. Alright, now, I've gone this far, so I might as well continue. Okay, so they're the three new ones. That's part of the collection update. What I'm going to talk about next is two records which are in my existing collection. I've owned them for a while. So this one, next one, needs no introduction. And it's one of my favorite death metal albums of all time. This is a picture of this. This is, of course, Cannibal Corpse with Eaten Back to Life. Awesome, awesome artwork. This has always been my favorite artwork by the band. Brilliant. And you've got the cemetery there. New logo and the song titles. For a picture this one actually plays very well. I bought this one from Upirak at 666 Records in Bangkok about 6 years ago. But I've owned the CD for a long time because this is one of the first bands I heard as a teenager. So one of my favorite, I would say this album is in my top 5 death metal albums of all time, for sure. And I think that other one, To the Gory End, would be included there. So two brilliant albums which you must check out. So most of you are familiar with Cannibal Corpse, I'm sure. So I don't need to go into too much detail, but this is just my take on the album, what it means to me. What I like about the artwork is it sums up the music inside, apart from being awesome, because it's just brutal, explosive, and energetic, like fucking flying off the wall. The energy of this album is just simply amazing. This album is very riffy. There's so many catchy riffs, coupled with explosive, thunderous drumming and brutal vocals. The double bass sound is just phenomenal, and the drum fills, and there's like awesome shredding guitar solos. This album is steeped deeply in thrash metal. So again, this album came out in 1990, I think. Yeah, so like there's still a strong thrash element on this album, which I love because it makes the songs so catchy. You can really hear the thrash influence on songs like Edible Autopsy and Scattered Remains, Splattered Brains. There's also, this album's got some catchy sing-along choruses. It's just got everything, but like, so good. And for its time, it would have been so brutal and so extreme, and it still stands the test of time today. So, just talking about, yes, it's brutal death metal with blast beats, the down-tuned guitars, guttural vocals and everything, but with the thrash element, it just makes the songs even catchier, and it's got this sort of like old school charm, which just hasn't been done on any other albums. This was the thrashiest album they've ever done. This, and I will say for the record, this is my favorite Cannibal Corpse album of all time. Everyone has different ones, this one's my favorite for sure. But yeah, like songs like Edible Autopsy, like just that, the riffs in that, so many catchy, thrashy riffs in that song, and then Scattered Remains, Splattered Brains with that intro, like dan, 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 chin, 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 chin. Like it's, you want to mosh along to this album. It's real headbanging material, which can't be said about, you know, all albums, but that's what I really like. It's just such a fun, great album. So the songs I was talking about with catchy sing-along choruses, you've got Mangled with that dan, 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 Mangled, you know, and they include some backing vocals from Glenn Benton and the guy from Incubus in that song. Also one of the band's most famous songs, A Skull Full of Maggots, you know, with a maggots. So again, a catchy scream-along chorus, which is always a crowd favorite at concerts. So what are my favorite tracks? Some of the ones I've just mentioned, but also the first track, Shredded Humans, one of the first tracks I ever heard by this band when my friend got the Hammer Smashed Face EP in 1993. That included 2 bonus tracks. One was Meat Hook Sodomy from Butcher to Birth, the other one was Shredded Humans, I think just to promote their earlier albums, but like Shredded Humans is just such a brilliantly catchy song, and so energetic, so many twists and turns in that song, some brilliant guitar solos. It's just one of the best death metal songs of all time in my opinion. So Shredded Humans, also Edible Autopsy as I mentioned because of those catchy thrashy riffs, also Mangled for the reason that I mentioned, Scattered Remains, Splattered Brains because of the mosh-tastic riffing in the beginning of that song, and also Born in a Casket, real headbanging stuff. So just absolutely great. What's another favourite that people like on this? The Undead Will Feast. Yeah, that song's okay to me. But yeah, the ones I mentioned before, they were the ones that are absolutely my favourites. So, Shredded Humans, Edible Autopsy, Mangled, Scattered Remains, Splattered Brains, and Born in a Casket. So, yep, just brilliant, top-notch, old-school death metal. If you have not heard this album, you must check it out. It's in my top 5 of all time, and it's my favourite by this band. So, from 1990, this is Cannibal Corpse with Eaten Back to Life. Right, and one more. Okay, so up next, this is Cemetery Urn with Barbaric Retribution. So if you watch my previous videos, you'll know that I've already talked about this in a collection update. I got it a few months ago, so, but it's still in the category of death metal, so I'm going to talk about it again. For those who didn't watch it, I'll just read the hype sticker. It says, Australian barbaric death metal, total and utter intensity from current Abominator and ex-Bestial Warlust members. The title says everything. So, yeah, that's correct. It is a barbaric death metal band featuring Undertaker, otherwise known as Andrew Gillen from Abominator, and the lyrics were written by Chris Volcano, who was also from Abominator. But if you're not familiar with Abominator, that's like really chaotic Black Death war metal. This is kind of similar in many ways, except the difference is it's less chaotic, it's more straightforward, slower, heavier riffing, and there's some Death Doom parts, so it's a bit slower, but just great stuff. Like so it's got a real old school vibe, and it's just catchy, memorable. It does have that wall of sound, but some of those, it's just got some moments on this album, like some of the breakdowns or some of the thrashy riffs where they really stand out, and you go, wow, and it's just like this bombarding wall of noise. I never noticed this before actually, but in many ways, it's a bit similar to Autopsy, you know, with the sort of slow, heavy, haunting riffing in certain parts, but they also have those parts where they take off and it's very fast. I also think fans of Nile would like this band. So Nile as in N-I-L-E, the Egyptian-themed American death metal band, just with that overall, like, explosive, brutal wall of sound. Like, they're not, I don't think it's a Nile clone band, not at all, but I think there's some similarities with the band Nile in this. So if you're in the mood just for some really bombastic, explosive, angry, old school death metal with some straightforward breakdowns, this is definitely for you. Check it out. I mentioned my favorite tracks last time. I think I said Ghost of Suicide and Death Mask Preserver and Putrefied Living Flesh. Also, it's interesting when an album grows on you, you can find some new favorites. So today, when I was listening to it, the other ones I really got into were Down the Path of the Dead and also Tendrils of Defilement. But that says it all. Like, I've nearly mentioned 3/4 of the album with that. You just can't go wrong with this. So great album. So, yep, this one was released by Hell's Headbangers the other day, so they never skimp on the artwork. Like, nice insert there with picture and lyrics, band photo, and this would have to be one of my favorite vinyls in terms of the visual presentation. It comes on this absolutely brilliant splatter vinyl, black and white splatter, cool labels. Yeah, so very nice. So I would say, if you've never heard the band Abominator, which is related to this band, definitely check them out because they're one of a kind. And this is more of the same thing, except in a more sort of straightforward, old school death metal way. So more simplistic, but just brilliant. So an album definitely worth checking out. From Australia, this is Cemetery Urn with Barbaric Retribution. Alright guys, so that concludes it for today. I wasn't sure if I was going to do 3 or 5, but I thought, once the ball gets rolling, might as well continue. So there we are. 5 albums from my death metal collection, 3 of which are new. And that concludes it. There are more death metal vinyls, which I'll talk about in a future video. But we'll see what the topic is for the next one. I haven't quite decided. Okay, so once again, to Ken and Ted from Unnatural, thank you very much for sharing my previous video, which resulted in a lot of new subscribers. Also, thanks very much, Liam, for the shout out. Really appreciate it. And as a result of you guys, I've got some more subscribers. So if you're new, once again, welcome. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for supporting this channel, and I hope you stick around for the next one, which should be coming soon. Okay, take care guys. See you.